Welcome to the Ribs and Knits podcast, where we cover everything godly and girly. We're going to be looking at what we should be clothing ourselves in. You have a choice in life. Do you want to clothe yourself in something that brings you joy and comfort? Or do you want to clothe yourself in something that looks kind of good, but gives you a rash in the long run? We get this choice in life, and we're going to be covering which choice to make. Let's do it together. Let's go. Hello, and welcome back to the Ribs and Knits podcast. I'm joined by my mummy. Hi, mummy.
Hello, Emily.
You need to have that to your face.
Hello, Emily.
Hi, mummy. My mum is here to talk about motherhood, being my mum. Talk about how to be a good daughter, how do we respect our mums, how do we love our mums well. I heard a quote recently that was really shook me. It's your mum's first time on earth too. And that really made me think about the way I treat my mum, the way I've treated my mum as a teenager and when I was a kid. There's been a lot that's happened, and my mum has always been great. She's just the best.
Not
mummy.
always, no.
And so we're going to dive into that today, talk about how you guys can learn from my mistakes, how you can learn from my mum's mistakes, how you can learn from just what's going on. So we're going to have a 15-minute timer on to make sure we don't over chat.
I don't think I will.
No, my mum isn't a chatter.
I'm not a chatty one.
But I am.
Yes.
If you've tuned in before, you know. I like to move my mouth. Okay, I'm going to start a 15-minute timer. And we're going to talk about the topic of how to be a good daughter, how to love your mum well. And my first thing is Colossians. In Colossians 3:12, it says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you." I just think that's really important with a mother-daughter relationship. There's so many dynamics that go on of my mum did this, my daughter did this, oh, you won't let me go to a party, you won't let me stay up late, you won't let me do what I want to do and live my own life. And it's the reality is you're a 12-year-old, so chill out, you know what I mean? And it's this thing of we have a choice, and if you are a Christian and you've chosen to follow God, you've chosen to live this life, which tells us to clothe ourselves with compassion. How can we show compassion to our mums? How can we be kind to our mums? How can we have humility? There's a lot of a big dynamic in a relationship with mum and daughter is being a bit cocky around your mum, being a bit I own my life, I run my own life, and you don't have a chance to basically tell me what I can and can't do. And so a lot of this is basically telling us how to be a daughter, how to follow God's call for our lives with this relationship, because it's intentional who your parents are. You may be watching this and be but my parents were adopted. That's an intentional thing. They chose you. That's amazing. You may be watching this and thinking, my parents, I live with a carer or grandparents. We're talking about that relationship today. The woman in your life, the main woman who is around, this is for you. And for me, that's my mum. How can I clothe myself in compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience I'm with my mum? Because you've had a lot of situations where I've not been those things.
Just a few, Emily.
Just a few.
Emily and I are completely different characters.
Yeah.
As you can tell with the talking, she talks a lot. I don't. We are curly hair, straight hair. We are so different in many ways. And I would say I found it a challenge because I expected my daughter to be a mini me. And it hasn't been the case. We are complete opposites. So dealing with the different things that have come up in childhood, teenage years, the conflicts, we deal with them in a different way, or have dealt with them in a different way. And I think we've both learnt from that of how to understand each other more and give each other time. I've learnt that not everything needs to be dealt with in that moment and resolved in that moment. Sometimes we've needed space to go away and think, and then come back and say sorry.
Yeah.
And I would say with Emily, if you don't mind me saying, as a younger person, you weren't very good at always saying sorry quickly and easily. But I think that's something we have really noticed, both Dad and I, of how now you are quicker to say sorry. And I think that's been a really important thing that I've seen you grow in your teenage adult life, and has helped in our relationship.
Yeah, I would say, I think the reason I found it so hard to say sorry when I was a kid was that it felt like every every time it was like, let's talk about your behaviour, Emily, it felt like an attack rather than like them trying to uplift me. So I would take criticism as an argument every single time, and I think that's something we really need to be careful of as daughters, is being like, not everything is conflict and not everything is to tear you down. And actually, if your parents coming to you being like, hey, you speak in a really awful tone, I like, you used to always be like, you speak in an awful tone, and I'd be like, no I don't, and respond in literally an awful tone, and then be like, no I don't, you don't even understand me, you don't get me. Babe, you just need a nap and like to stop watching certain TV shows, and then you won't have a bad tone. Do you know what I mean? And so it was definitely a thing for me where I had to learn that criticism is a good thing. It builds you up, it clothes you in the right things, and it makes you a better person. And if you don't want to act like a 9-year-old for the rest of your life, taking in criticism is the best thing you can do. Obviously there are times where parents will say stuff where it's like, no I didn't do that, and actually you didn't do that. And I know what it's like to be like, you know, with teachers, parents, it's like sometimes it's like you're saying something that isn't true about me, but then it's sometimes not an argument, it's a conversation of like, why do you think that about me, and let me tell you why I think this about myself, and let's find the middle ground of who's right, or not even who's right. Let's just decide together that I'm not an awful person. There's just things that need to grow and change. And a big thing about being a teenager is growing and changing, and you're going to get a lot of criticism. You're going to get a lot of people coming at you saying, you need to change this, you need to change this, because you probably do. And I definitely did need to, because otherwise I'd have acted like a child till I'm 80, and that's not very helpful. And teenage years, early 20s are really poignant times for changing and becoming your better person. And yeah, it's really important to remember your mum is another girl. You're a girl. My mum likes shopping, she likes clothes, she likes TV and movies, and I think it's important to see your mum as another girl and not just this figure that has to like stand over you and tell you what to do and control your life. Like, your mum's not here to control your life. She's here to be with you, help you, love you, care for you, and some of that is doing that a little bit back. And so being like, hey, let's watch a movie together. We like watching movies together. Sometimes Dad will stand in the corner and say he's not watching, but he actually is. Watch movies with my mum.
Or reading the same books.
Reading the same books. I'll like read a book and then give you a book, or you'll read a book and give it to me. It's finding things that we can do that are us and our thing, rather than everything being like, the only reason I know my mum is because she lives in the same house as me and she feeds me and she gives me pocket money. There's got to be some sort of relationship out of that, which to learn in your teenage years is so beautiful. And I think if when I was a teenager, I'd have spent a little bit more time focusing on hanging out with my mum rather than spending all my time like trying to hang out with friends or texting friends or watching TV, I might have had an easier friendship with you earlier on.
Emily asked me about something in the Bible, and the story of Naomi and Ruth came to mind. And what I said to you earlier about us being different, and Ruth and Naomi were from different tribes, and they came together. And like with Emily and I, the differences we have in our different personalities, and how God has brought us together. And something that really impacted me when Emily was younger, I was chatting to somebody in church about motherhood, and she encouraged me by saying that God doesn't make mistakes in who he gives you as your children, that he chose you to be your children's mother. And that was a real encouragement that I have clung on to for many years. This was like when Emily was quite young, that me for both our children. We might not always see eye to eye and agree on things, do things differently, but we are in God's plan and his sovereignty of being mother and daughter together and growing in our relationship, and we can help and encourage each other.
I would definitely say the story of Ruth is one of my favourite stories. It's one of my favourite books in the Bible, that and James. And some key things I would take away from it are 2 things from Naomi and 2 things from Ruth. The 2 things from Naomi are, firstly, Naomi shared her faith with Ruth, and Ruth had a choice. Do I go with my mother-in-law's faith? Do I go with my husband's faith? Because the reason Naomi and Ruth were brought together is because she married Naomi's son. He sadly passed away, and it was Ruth's opportunity. Do I join in with this Jewish faith? Do I join in with what Naomi believes in? And that was a choice that Naomi gave her. It wasn't like when you're reading it, it's not like, and Naomi told Ruth, you now must be Jewish. That's not kind of how it works. But that's definitely a thing with mothers, with daughters, is your mum's going to share things with you. And sharing things is vulnerable and it's kind. And so if your mum has shared something with you, like maybe, I think we should do this diet together. Like, obviously not eat together, but like, I think we should eat
healthier.
That
would be it.
And she shows you some really important things. It's your choice to go, okay, I'm going to join in with my mum. But also it's your choice to say, actually, I don't want to eat your keto diet. I want to eat mash and beans. Okay, eat your mash and beans. I don't know why mash and beans, but it's a choice, but it's a kind thing. And it's a sensitive thing to be like, I really care about this daughter of mine, so I'm going to share something with her. And then another thing Naomi did was she allowed Ruth autonomy over her future. She said, hey, like, don't come. Like, you have a future in Moab. You can be a Moabite and live there and have a new husband. My son's dead. You don't owe me anything. So please go back. And it was Ruth's decision what she did. Do I go with my mother-in-law? Do I go home? Do I have a life with a new man? Or do I follow this woman who doesn't have any more sons for me to marry? Because back then you basically had to go, if my son dies, then you marry my other son. And then if he dies, you join my husband with me. That wasn't possible. Her husband was dead. Her 2 sons were dead. So the only choice she had was to hang out with this older lady for the rest of her life. And that is something that we need to like understand, is my daughter's life is her own and she has choice over what she does. She might be a doctor. She might be a dancer. And that's her choice. She may be a Christian. She may decide actually she doesn't believe in Christianity, and that is her choice. And then 2 things I love that Ruth did was Ruth prepared herself to follow her mother-in-law's way of life. Something as daughters we need to understand is we've been placed with a mum. You said that it's an intentional thing that God gave you me. And then it's my decision to respect you and follow your ways of life. I went to church with you all my childhood and teenage years, and I didn't always want to be there, but that was your thing. And until I decided to make it my own faith, I went to respect you. And there's also things of like dressing in the way that you find appropriate. I might have wanted to dress a different way, but I'm living under your roof. And I think Ruth really embodies that. And it's a really beautiful story of Ruth going out into the fields and getting food for her and her mother-in-law, and doing that to respect her mother-in-law. Like, what can we be doing to bless our mothers like Ruth did? And then another thing Ruth did was Ruth chose her mother-in-law, and once she chose her mother-in-law, she went where she went, she ate where she ate, she lived where she lived. And I think that's something with our mums. Like, look at your mum and say, are you going to be my mum, or are you going to be a woman I'm distant with? And that's a choice you've actually got to make. And if you're going to love your mum and be with your mum, and you want her to always be your mum, you got to choose her in situations. You've got to choose her over your own feelings. You've got to choose her over some friends. You've got to choose her over going to the party, and actually choose, like, my mum wants a night in. Okay, well then I won't go to that party because I want to love you and respect you.
Good little talker.
God told me to start a podcast, I guess. Good little talker. Not little anymore, mum.
No, you're always my little girl.
Any tips for daughters for loving their mum before we go?
I think that thing that you started with, it's their first time too, or something.
Oh,
have you said?
It's your mum's first time on earth too.
Yeah. And I've always wanted the best for Emily and haven't always got it right. And I know I've made mistakes, and I think it's also important for a mum, when you make mistakes, to say sorry to your child and admit that you don't always know what you're doing and getting it right, but you do have their best interests at heart, and you want them to grow and be the woman that God wants them to be.
Yeah, that's so good, Mum. If you are like, I really want to learn how to be a bit like Ruth as a daughter, definitely read the book of Ruth. It's like 2 pages. You'll make it through. But if you want more than that, there is a great book that I love called The Field of Grace by Tessa Afshar. And it basically is Ruth's life in a novel. And it's a really beautiful story. And it will really give you hope with how to maneuver being a daughter. Because it's not like you got to choose to be a daughter. It's kind of a thing you'll just have to do. And so I really, really love that book because it really goes into Ruth's story and helps you really understand it. And if you're struggling with your mum right now, if you're a bit far off from your mum, why not write her a letter, tell her how you're feeling, talk to her, maybe even ask her, hey, come to the living room, let's listen to this podcast together, watch this podcast together.
We prayed as well, when things were challenging, we would pray about how do we deal with it, praying as well. So
you had a lot of prayers about me.
So important. Yeah,
no, that's so good. So pray your way through it, and hang out with your mum, go for coffee, go shopping, watch a movie together, find a thing you might like to do. Maybe you'll
tidy your room for your mum to make life easier for her.
I don't know about that one. No, but maybe you'll read the Tessa Afshar book and then give it to your mum like I give my mum my books. And yeah, that's that. Thanks, mummy.
Okay,
that's me and my mummy.
God bless you. Bye bye.
That's